And we're live. I've got Rachel Lynch here, and thank you everybody for watching tonight. I'm Jackson, founder of the Nurse Break, and I'll be taking you through this interview with dual Olympian and registered nurse slash manager Rachel. Now, I don't know. This is the first time I've done this on my phone. I don't know how this is going to go, and I don't know if this is even live right now. So it's going to be awkward if no one's watching. I'm also on my 3Gs, so bear with me if this doesn't work. Can you post in the comments if you are watching this, just so I can see who's watching? I know there's a few people, but can you just post in the comments just to make sure that you can hear me and everything's all good? And Rachel, where are we getting you from tonight? There's 20 plus people.
Oh, good. I'm in Perth.
Perth, cool. And what's it like up in Perth? I've never been.
Oh, Perth is beautiful. We're very lucky at the moment. Good weather, no COVID. Really can't complain.
Yeah, I'm in the territory at the moment. You can't complain either. It's free land up here. Thank you, Facebook user. So anyone who's watching this in the group, there's a few of you. If you look at the top link, it'll, because at the moment we can't see your name, and if I put your questions up on screen, no one will be able to see what your name is. So can you just approve Facebook / StreamYard to give access to you, because there's a lot of you watching in the Facebook group. So tonight I'm joined by Rachel, born in Melbourne. She took up hockey after being selected in the primary school state team. She's now a veteran hockeyroo, dual Olympian, dual Commonwealth Games gold medalist, and World Cup silver medalist, and has played in over 220 games for Australia. And off the pitch, obviously, Rachel is a registered nurse, frontline health worker, or last defense. I don't like the word frontline, but anyway. And she runs the Stomp goalkeeping program, is very active in the mental health space, and is an ambassador for Are You OK Day, which just recently was around, and Lifeline. So Rachel, I appreciate you being on tonight, and I know you're a very busy lady, so I appreciate you finding some time in Perth.
Thanks, Jackson. I'm glad to be here amongst the nursing crew. It's nice to be a part of this community. I think I'm very proud to be a nurse, and I do a lot of this stuff around the sporting space. But yeah, it's always cool to I guess give a bit of a shout out to the nurses amongst us.
Amazing. Yeah, it's good to have you. And there's some nurses doing some pretty crazy things. Being Olympians, going to the Olympics, doing things that people don't hear about. So hopefully we can showcase some such as yourself. So my very first question before we even crack into it is, do you have any good hockey jokes?
There's plenty of inappropriate jokes that are thrown around to do with the ball, and we call like the circle, or where you can score from, is called the D. And me being a goalie, there's plenty. I challenge anyone to pose one that I've not heard before, but they're probably a little bit too inappropriate to share on here.
Yeah, fair enough. We don't want ACRA onto us or your employer, so we'll be safe. So let's start with what was your journey into nursing like?
So I didn't go straight into nursing from school. I thought originally I wanted to be a sports psychologist. So I guess I played a lot of sport, and I went into a course of human movement and psychology. I've always loved people and had an interest in that, but the human movement, the sporting side, I was like, well, that'll be easy enough, and straight out of school, why not? But once I discovered it was a 7-year degree, I decided against it. But during that time, I did a placement at a nursing home, and I think from memory, I was doing diversional therapy with some of the residents there, and I really enjoyed it. So plus mum's a nurse, that helps as well. So I just decided to transfer over to the nursing, and I really haven't looked back. I knew straight away that it was for me, and I've just always loved the flexibility in the job, that you can kind of go wherever you want, that whatever suits your personality and your lifestyle. So from there, finished my degree. I was sort of in the national team by then, so did have a bit of chopping and changing with international commitment, but otherwise, we did my grad year in Perth, and ended up staying on the ward, the first ward that I worked in as a grad. I've been there ever since for 10 years. So. And
so what different areas do you work in currently?
I've moved away from the hospital or clinical setting now, but I was in neuro rehab. So I did my first rotation there, did a rotation on a respiratory ward, and then I applied for a spot to do trauma, but which I got accepted in. But then I sort of decided it was really hard with my hockey because I was a full-time athlete whilst working full-time as a nurse, and I thought an environment that is maybe a little bit more controlled and predictable, such as rehab, seemed to suit me better. So just, got the job on the rehab ward and was there for 10 years up until May last year, where I left and moved into the COVID world of a mining company and looking after their COVID program.
Yeah, wow. Well, anyone who's watching this, and there's a whole bunch of you, if you have any questions about rehab nursing, make sure to put them in the comments and I'll ask Rachel. And you've got questions about juggling, being a hockey player, nursing, working in a mine site, put them in the comments. So that's pretty cool. So 10 years of rehab, and now you're dealing with the COVID management of a mine site, which is pretty important. We'll get back to your nursing, but I'm curious, can you tell us from 2005 when you were at the Junior World Cup in Chile to like the Olympics this year, sort of what were your main career highlights since then?
Yeah, so it's been 15 years I've been in the national team. So 06 I debuted, and I think, probably similar to most athletes, it's not been like a kind of upward trajectory all the time. It's up and down, and also being a goalie, I've played in 233 games for Australia now. But I did the maths one day and figured out that I've also sat on the bench or missed out for another 200. So there's been, well over, or probably now about 450 games since I debuted. So the life of a goalie means you're not guaranteed. And that certainly helped me build my resilience and have an appreciation and a real sense of gratitude, I suppose, for the opportunities that I do get. During that time, there's been 4 Olympic cycles. So we sort of work in 4-year cycles, 4 of those. And Rio was my first Olympics. So it took me 10 years to go to my first Olympics. But during that time, 3 Commonwealth Games, 3 World Cups, a few gold medals, silver medals in there. So I had a pretty successful career, but you've obviously got to get your timing right with the Olympics. And, we only take 1 goalie to the Olympics. So I missed out on 2 of those before I got selected. So, massive learning in there as well. And my work played a pretty key role, actually. It was the 2016 in the Olympic year. It was the first time I was able to work, because normally in an Olympic year we're not allowed to. But I knew that my work was so important to me to make me a good athlete and a good person. So I begged my coach that year to let me work. And even though it was only 1 day a week, it made a huge difference to give me the perspective I needed to, play well in that year.
Yeah, right. So quite a bit of a journey, and I guess there's only 1 goalkeeper and there's a lot of other players, so it's a very competitive role to have. You must have a lot of people fighting for that role. So I believe you were the International Goalkeeper of the Year. Which year was that?
It was for 2019.
Amazing. So that's a very competitive role. Yeah, so well done. And I guess, so this year was the Olympics and the very different Olympics. I could ask you about all the differences, and I could make some assumptions that there's no crowds and COVID and very different sort of dynamic. How would you compare this competition that we just had to previous?
Yeah, I mean, it was very different. We as an Australian team were definitely closer together. I think the fact there was no crowds, no one had family or friends over there. We kept to ourselves a fair bit because the risk of COVID. There was countries from all over the world, like hundreds of countries, and we know that every country's got different management systems, and we obviously had to trust the Olympic Committee and how they looked after everyone and tested everyone, but we weren't going to take any chances, so we just stuck to the Aussie team. But I actually think it was great. I feel like of all the Olympics, there was just a very special feel about this one, and the fact that people at home and I know, my friends and family in Melbourne were so grateful to have something to feel happy about, something to, create a bit of joy in their life. A lot of them were in lockdown, and to see athletes having success and riding the wave with them. And, even for me, I love watching the montages and hearing the stories behind each athlete. I guess that made it really special compared to other Olympics where it's just, about who's winning, who's, gold medals, silver medals, whatever. So we were really...
So I was in quarantine with a whole bunch of people who've never really watched hockey before, and we were watching one of your matches and we were all shouting. There was a whole bunch of us. We were in quarantine together. No, we weren't breaching quarantine, but there was a whole bunch of us in our own bubble. And yeah, it was a very energetic environment. All like, I know her. So it was very cool. She's a nurse.
Well, the ward I used to work on, I know they sent me like a really cool little video and some photos before. You know, I haven't worked there for a little while now, but they all got dressed up in the Aussie gear and just wanted to wish me good luck. And I know a few of them are not afraid to have a little cheeky brag about the fact that I worked there and, you know, would tell patients and stuff. So they were watching, and it's really special. It's nice to have that community behind you.
Every patient, every ward bed has the TV on Olympics.
Exactly.
You have no choice. No news for you.
Hockey only.
That's great. So being an elite athlete and also a very busy nurse, how do you juggle? Because I'm assuming there's a lot of people who are watching this as well who, while you may not be an elite athlete, but you might be an elite mother and you might have kids, or you might be, I don't know, doing something that keeps you really busy and elite on the side. So I'm just curious how you juggle nursing with that.
Yeah, it's it's probably, I mean, it's a similar challenge that most people face. Like you said, sounds like you're a pretty busy guy too, Jackson. But if you want it to work, you can make it work. And I'm certainly finding now, because we're on a bit of a break from hockey, the motivation required to train or do exercise either before or after work is hard. And I certainly found doing the shift work was a little bit easier because it gave you a bigger chunk of the day. But I suppose our commitments are set in stone. You just don't miss them. You know, throughout the year, you would never miss training unless you're, you know, really unwell, or even when you're injured, you still go. So to have 6 days a week where you've got structured sessions booked in, and then you just fit your work in around that, that makes it a bit easier. You don't have to think about it. You just go. But I'm just someone who likes to be busy, and I fill my life with things that I'm passionate about. So it's not a chore. You know, I remember one day even at work, I used to love baking and taking in, you know, baked goods just to lift the morale of everyone on the ward. And one of my morning shifts, I got up and I made some scones, and, you know, I took them in. They were obviously fresh, and people were like, what, you know, why'd you get up so early? And it's like, well, I'm just so passionate about scones being fresh. So I got up an hour earlier, you know. So if you know, you can find a way. And as I said, I'm happy to have a really busy schedule because they're all things that I love doing. And I think you just got to commit to that and be organised and communicate. And yeah, you can do it.
Is that the key to a functional team, is bring them scones?
Yes, food. It works for every team.
Management, any managers out there, scones. So I guess my next question is about, what did you wish you knew before you started? It's a tricky question because you sort of always were doing it, but I guess what advice do you think would have been helpful for you to have known before you started juggling all these things together? What would have made it better?
I mean, communication is really important. I've always been pretty clear in, I suppose, clarifying expectations and being really open and honest around what I'm trying to do, because essentially I'm, you know, doing 2 full-time jobs by having the hockey combined with the nursing. And admittedly, you know, when I was in the hospital, I was only doing 1 day a week because that's all I could actually fit, because we trained twice a day and you just couldn't fit the shifts in. But I think having that those conversations really early, you know, I was very open with my boss, so she knew where I was and what I was doing, and I was able to communicate really clearly in advance what my schedule looked like, the days that I could do. And if you're upfront about that, they know you're not slacking off or whatever. And, you know, I never really took sick days or that sort of stuff, because when I was required at work, I wanted to be 100% committed and loyal. And I think people really appreciate that when you've got various things going on. You know, you don't want to take the piss and kind of abuse both sides. It's about really committing to both, but being really clear around what you're trying to do and who you are and what's important to you. And I guess my loyalty was rewarded in, you know, across the 10 years and even now, having incredible bosses who would essentially bend over backwards to allow me to do my hockey as well. And I'm really lucky to have that.
That's amazing. And now, so in regards to nursing, so moving on to nursing, so you're now in a leadership position. Back in the rehab sort of area you're working, can you sort of tell us about what that type of nurse? So a lot of people don't talk about rehab nursing. Everyone talks about ICU and ED and flight nursing and nursing in other cool areas. So tell us about rehab nursing.
Yeah, well, thank you. I'm grateful for the chance to give it a plug because I even had the conversation with my nan yesterday. She had a fall. She's in hospital in Melbourne, and she just moved from acute ward across to rehab. And she said she already feels better, and she had a couple of nurses come up to her and say hi. And I was like, rehab nurses are the bomb because they've got more time. Like, yeah, we're busy, we're flat out still, but you have time to have that, personal relationship and that connection. And that really suited me. I think, like the fast pace, the ED, all of that is cool. Like you said, it's wonderful for your skill set. But at the end of the day, we're there to look after people. And I hated any environment where it was like the quick turnover. You just never even get to know them. You know of them as their diagnosis rather than who they actually are. Whereas on the rehab ward, we had people that were there for sometimes up to a year. And that allowed me to go away on hockey tours and come back and still have the same patients. And I guess you're also a really key part of their life after hospital. So that the better level of not even just care but support, because obviously in rehab you're trying to encourage them back to or practicing the habits that they need to relearn or whatever it might be. So I love that element, the motivation. The harder you work, the quicker you get out of there, which again suited me with my sport. And yeah, I just think it's a wonderful environment. And we always had a fantastic team because I feel like it is a slightly different group of people. But yeah, anyone that's thinking of getting into rehab, it's a really nice environment if you like the sort of real patient contact side.
So for those who may not be aware, can you sort of tell us about some of the patient sort of presentations? Who do you sort of look after in your context that you were working in?
Yeah, so we had majority stroke, MS, a little bit of MND, not so much, Guillain-Barré, like a real mixture, but majority was stroke. So obviously have a stroke, present to the hospital, go through whatever there, and then they'd come to us. And yeah, a really allied health focus. They had their team, their physio, OT, speech, the whole crew, and then the nursing element. Yes, a whole lot of personal care, but it was about whatever they've learned at physio, we're making sure they're practicing that in the day-to-day ward environment.
Yeah, that must be a very difficult area because I saw the acute side of it, so but I never got to. Well, I did see a little bit on Gen Med, sort of the next side of it, but the rehab is definitely the extended care. So I'm curious. This came to my mind then. So about looking after someone for so long, I'm curious about professional boundaries. Did you find sometimes your relationship, or maybe not yourself, but it could become some nurses could build such strong relationships with people over 12 months that they get invited to weddings and so on, like they become friends after. Is that something that exists?
Yeah. I mean, it's a really good point and good question. We had some situations like that, and even for me, there was times where I had to navigate that because when I was at the hospital, I was there as Rachel Lynch, their nurse. I didn't sort of advertise the fact that I played hockey or anything like that. Occasionally it came up for whatever reason. It's not like I was trying to hide it, but then I had Facebook requests and Instagram, and there's definitely patients that have left long time ago who I still hear from, and they jump on the social media because they follow my hockey. So yeah, I think you do have to be really careful, but within reason. It's also, as I said, you're building relationships. So as long as you're professional and clear around that, it's also nice because we had patients that would come back in for little bursts of rehab. So sometimes you'd see them every year, for example. So you can't really help it in a sense, but definitely something to be aware of.
In regards to stroke patients, because that was probably a big part of your cohort, what advice would you give to other nurses who are looking after a stroke patient, maybe in a different setting, acute setting on a ward?
Yeah, the one thing about stroke is that, a lot of them are able to, on our ward, majority would walk out. So there is that element of future hope and, positive, I guess, prognosis in the end. Not everyone, but a lot. And I guess it's that understanding of, what has happened to them is a little bit reversible. You know, we were also not far away from the spinal ward and you know, the brain injuries, a very different scenario. Where a stroke, there's an end in sight, and I guess it's just encouraging them to stay on track. You know, sometimes it's about changing habits too. We have people coming in and rather than eating the hospital food, they've got family members bringing in, you know, the KFC, and they're being wheeled outside to have a cigarette, and that's pretty frustrating. So there's always going to be that education piece as the nurse, but probably in the acute scenario, it might be a bit too soon to be pushing that stuff. But it's just supporting, really.
Yeah. No, that's cool. All those who are watching, there's about 15 or 20 of you. Just any questions that come to your mind at all, you don't have much longer to ask for me to ask them to Rachel. So just post them in the comments. Rach, so in stroke and rehab nursing, one of the best things about it and one of the most challenging things about it before we move on to the next question.
The best thing, as I said, is the relationships that you can build, and you can really have an influence on these people's lives, because a lot of them that do come in don't have particularly, you know, healthy habits or healthy lifestyles, and it really opens their eyes to a whole new world, and a world that I live in with my sport. But for these people to be like, right, you now have to have the discipline to get up and do these exercises, to go to your physio even though it's hard, to come back and practice things even though you don't really want to, and it would be quicker for the nurse to do it or for your family member to do it. So I love that side. The bad bit probably is the fact that it, you know, it can happen to people who are young and fit and healthy as well, and or to people that, you know, couldn't do anything about it. Maybe it's the you know, the classic hole in the heart is a bit of a problem, and it's it can be devastating. You know, I tell a story about a lady I remember admitting who had run a marathon, or she'd done an Ironman or something, and when she finished the race, had fatigue, weakness, nausea, all of these things, and they're like, well, you just run a marathon, so of course you have that, when in fact she was having a stroke, and so there's a bit of a delay in the recognition. But, you know, fit as really young and healthy, and you're just like, well, their life has been changed forever. So it can be pretty heartbreaking as well.
Yeah, wow. I'm assuming a lot of these strokes are ischemic strokes, or did you get a few with other types of strokes?
Yeah, a mixture. They're all a little bit different, but and that's also the challenge of, it's a bit of luck almost as to what deficits they then have. You know, some people that, like my nan had a stroke, and hers was most specifically around her speech. So she can walk fine and she's got full function of her limbs, but her speech is a real struggle for her now. So they're all very different.
We've got a question from Greg. Thanks, Greg. All the others who are watching, I expect questions. Greg asks, how has your nursing life helped your hockey life and vice versa? Good question.
Greggles, thank you. You must have seen my Facebook plug. Greg's one of my hockey coaches. So
there you go.
Yeah. I think, I mean, empathy is one part that you're always going to gain from nursing, but some people would say that I'm actually can be quite savage. So I certainly reserve my empathy for when I'm working, but I think building relationships, understanding people, really trying to figure out and appreciate why they act the way they do and think the way they do. And in the nursing world, that's pretty important, but same with sport, especially in a team sport, the team dynamics. And then, I guess, like I said before, the motivation, the discipline, those sorts of things can still be relevant in a health world or a healthcare setting. So some of that from my sport has helped my nursing. And I know any of the wards or the teams that I'm involved in with nursing is like, I feel like I can contribute in the same way. It's about being a leader, being a good role model, inclusive of people, and just trying to make it a good environment so that people enjoy their job.
Amazing. Sounds like incredibly passionate, which is amazing. So we're going to change sort of direction. So mental health, and you're quite passionate about this area as well. So I'm going to quote you. I don't know if you wrote or said this, but I went from a very active, positive, bubbly, and extroverted person to someone who wasn't motivated or eating well, not wanting to be around groups and avoiding public settings. So can you sort of tell us about your mental health journey and how you managed that, and I guess how that has linked to your work as an ambassador with Are You OK and Lifeline?
Yeah, would love to. The sun's gone down here, so I'm just going to quickly chuck a light on. Bear with me one sec.
For the others who are watching, thank you for tagging along. There's quite a few of you, so yeah, just make sure you ask your questions. We'll ask them to Rach.
Yeah, so well, I mean, without going into too much detail, I had a bit of a rough time over the last 12 months with my hockey, and yeah, ended up in the lead up to the Tokyo Olympics getting kicked off the team. So it was pretty tough. I've dealt with non-selection and challenges the whole way through my career, but this one was a little bit different, and then involved a legal battle and an appeal. So I think the work that I've done around mental health and specifically Are You OK in my life in general, but within the hockey team as well, in the Hockeyroos, it really paid dividends, because when I sort of got into a pretty bad place, I had some incredible supports around me, and not just friends and family, but it was people who knew the language to use, who were really consistent and persistent with their check-in, checking in on me and making sure that I was going okay, and if I needed anything or support or whatever. But it was a really rough time, and I was working. So I was working full time in the COVID space then, and also training by myself. So because I wasn't in the team, I was still pretty determined to go to the Olympics. So I continued the same training load. I just had to do it on my own. And that was really hard, each morning getting up and, going for rides by myself and going to the gym and trying to work as hard as I can, knowing that I'm not in the team. So yeah, I think it was just a good eye opener for me, and probably the first time I'd been through my own actual, mental health challenge. And, I was seeing a psychologist and ended up with medication and things like that for some people are pretty common, but I hadn't experienced that before. So yeah, it was a tricky time, but I'm glad I had the supports around me, and I was, I guess, open enough to say when I wasn't doing well, and I guess, practice what I preach, really.
That's amazing. So I guess there's a lot of nurses currently who are struggling with this. There's massive burnout, and there's nurses leaving the workforce like in a tsunami. So I guess, what advice or strategies do you have for nurses for their mental health, or to build their resilience? Or if you ask someone, "Are you okay?" and they say no, what do you do? What do you actually do next?
Yeah, well, that one first, I think listening is the most key part. We're all very good at jumping in and trying to solve problems for people. Someone says they're going through this, and it's like, oh yeah, well, I went through the same sort of thing. It's like, no, this about that person. It's being really present. It's listening to them. Not trying to find the answers. Sometimes that's all you need to do. But then, of course, there is things that you can help with, supports, referral, obviously, if they maybe need to utilise one of the services. If there's someone else that they could talk to, family, friend, colleague, whatever. But the support of, well, after work, can we go for a walk, or do you want to grab a coffee in your lunch break? I mean, most nurses don't get breaks, but I guess that's that part. And then the other side, just to acknowledge anyone that's actually on the call that's currently working in the COVID space. I can't even begin to imagine the level of fatigue and just exhaustion that would be happening. I've got plenty of friends that work in health, some over east as well, over in Melbourne, and it's hard to comprehend how you could still be doing what most people finished doing last year, whatever we are, nearly 2 years on. Firstly, it's owning it. It's being okay with it. It's probably lowering your expectations in some areas of your life, whether that's your exercise, I'm not saying that, exercise and sleep and good food is also important, but there's times where you just do have to lower your expectations, and maybe it's even around the way you parent your children. And in the middle of a pandemic, it's sometimes we just need to survive a little bit. But I also find that the team environment, like within your ward or where your work area, is so important. So really trying hard to maintain those relationships, just doing nice stuff for people, that gives you a bit of a morale boost. But if you can look after your team, that's going to make your job much easier. And nurses are very good at that anyway. But the frustration, the fatigue, all of that, not taking it out on the people that are going through the same thing. I suppose that'd be my advice.
And Taryn has asked a great question. Taryn Bergen, thanks for asking that. And she asked, I'll put it on screen, do you do anything in particular when you're stressed to cope?
Well, eat chocolate like most people.
Yes.
There was two things. When I went through my first sort of phase of the stuff going on, lots of alcohol, bad food, just feeling angry, all of that. But then I pretty quickly realised that's not a good place to be. So I cut out alcohol. My sleep became a real priority. I think that's key for most people. As much as you want to do other things, like you just got to get your sleep. Can't really function without that. But I have my own strategies. I love to go on a bike ride. Obviously, it's difficult for everyone to fit exercise in, but something, even if it's literally a walk around the block, if that's all you've got time to do, just go outside. Feel that feeling of the sun on your back and notice it. That can be pretty therapeutic. And then the other thing is I use my connections and the people that are important to me. I ring my nan every single day. Every day I ring her, and she that's important for her, but I know that it makes me feel good as well. And, even if it's a short conversation, it can get you out of your head, think about something else, think about someone else. Nurses do that all day. But, I guess that's sort of my strategy.
No, I think they're great points. Taryn, I hope that was what you're looking for. And literally, I've only got 2 questions left. We're going to do a quick one tonight. The biggest lessons you've learned over your whole journey in hockey and nursing so far?
It's probably just in life in general, and that's just to be kind to people. Again, maybe just a silly thing to say if it's nurses that are listening, because that's what we do. But kindness there's just so much value in kindness, I think. And, if you're feeling angry or just a bit shitty about the world, go and do something nice for someone. If you go for a walk, pick up some rubbish and put it in the bin, or say hello to someone who's got their head down and their face in their phone. Say hi to them, smile at them. Do something really small for, like a little Post-it note. Anyone that works in an office or on a ward, grab the Post-it note and go and write something nice and just, stick it on someone's desk. I think the value in it is, twofold. It's obviously nice for that person, but it makes you feel good too. And if you can brighten someone's day with a really, really small act, imagine if you did that a couple of times a day. It's pretty powerful.
Great points. I remember one of the places I used to work at had a jar, and you would just write something about one of your colleagues, and put in the jar anonymously, something they did well. And then the nurse manager would grade all the good ones out. And it was for good comments. You would just read them out. It's a morale booster. And final question. What is next for your career?
So sporting-wise, or with hockey, I'm not sure. We've got a lot of change happening. We're on a break now, basically to the end of the year, and we'll have a new coach, new staff. So as much as I'd love to make plans, it's kind of no point, because they might not see me in the future. I'm loving playing still, and I'd like to keep going and keep contributing to the Hockeyroos. So that's the hockey. Nursing, I'm not really sure. I've been in this management role since May last year. Great opportunity, loving a new environment, working in mining, hopefully, contributing to the keeping COVID out of our mine sites, and that's helpful for the economy. But I miss the clinical nursing heaps. I miss the patient contact. Not so much, the use of skills. Obviously, I don't want that to go away, but I just miss really adding value to people's lives and being able to help them get better. So I definitely think I'll end up back in a clinical setting sometime soon.
Amazing. And I'm sure what some of our viewers will now recognize you if they didn't already. Um, so that's amazing. Thank you, Rachel. Is there any other sort of points you'd like to touch off on before we end tonight?
Look, I think it's really awesome what you're doing. I read one of the articles the other day around the fatigued ICU nurse, and I think it's great to continue creating awareness around the nursing world. Everyone's got a story. That's what I love. So I'm really enjoying sort of reading other people's stories and points of view. But as I said, we're trying to create a community, and it's wonderful what you're doing to help embrace that. And yeah, I hope that people can continue to do so. And I'm really grateful to be a small part of it with this event tonight.
Amazing. No, thank you for that. And for all those who are watching, if you have a story or you know someone who you think might have a story and is a nurse or a student or a midwife, just email me at hello@thenursebreak.org or just message the Facebook page. Rachel, that's it I've got for you tonight. I'm sure we'll touch base in the online sphere again for the nurse break at some point on some topic. If you just wanted to stay in the back end and we'll have a quick chat. But everyone else who was watching, you can watch all our live Q&As. We've done heaps of them. They're all downloaded as podcasts, or you can all just watch them in the video format like this. They're on the Facebook section on videos, or you can go to the website and you click live interviews. So www.thenursebreak.org, and there's the live interviews there, and you can watch all of the cool ones we've done, and there's some cool things coming as well. So thank you again for all those who have watched and asked questions, and good night.